This conference will now be recorded.
All right, again, I'd love to introduce from Cornell Cooperative Extension, Nicole. Go ahead, take it over.
Hi, everyone. I want to thank you so much for coming. I have been to a few programs at Oceanside Library, and it's always wonderful to see everybody, but I am happy that we were able to move this online. And today we're going to be talking about From Garden to Table, Colors of the Garden. So before I turn my camera off, I do want to let everybody know that this is definitely a more food and nutrition focused session as opposed to gardening tips and tricks. If you do have any specific questions, don't hesitate to ask. If it is something that I cannot answer, I can always kick that question to my colleagues over at our farm. And we are about to get started. So I'm going to shut my camera off. Feel free to ask any questions that you have in the chat box, and I will answer them if Akaria is able to see them and ask the questions. So I'm going to start right about now. All right. So if anybody is not familiar with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Nassau County, just to let you know, we are a nonprofit educational organization. We're part of the Cooperative Extension Land Grant System. So this is a partnership between the county, the state, and the federal government. It's administered here in New York through Cornell University, which is super wonderful. You know, we are associated with an Ivy League institution. Each county's extension is independent. We work to serve the needs of the county that we're in. So we are here in Nassau County. So we provide research-based information, tools, education to the community on many different topics like food and nutrition, horticulture, and sustainable natural resources. Oops, sorry. All right. So I know this has been discussed ever since you were a child, right? We know how important fruits and vegetables are. We know that they give us vitamins, minerals, fiber, and antioxidants. And antioxidants are kind of a buzz term, right? So compounds with antioxidant properties help to protect our cells from damage and can help to reduce the risk of things like cancer, stroke, and heart disease. What's interesting about these antioxidants is that they're typically produced by that plant to protect the plant. So an example would be resveratrol that's found in grapes. Right? We think about red wine, it's our excuse to drink red wine. So that compound is produced as a defense against fungi in that plant, which is really interesting. So the American Heart Association recommends 8 or more fruit and vegetable servings every day. And if everybody was here in person, I'd ask you to raise your hand if you get that many servings, because I'm always curious. But we know that most Americans, a huge majority, about 90%, do not get that recommendation. And we sort of fall into the habit of finding a few foods that we like, that maybe our kids will finally eat, and focus on those. Very easy to fall into a routine. The truth is that our bodies can benefit from variety. So there's a need for us to eat a rainbow. You hear that a lot, right? Eating a rainbow of nutrients and colors. So the reason for that is the different types of colored fruits and vegetables that color is caused by different phytonutrients. So those are natural chemicals that are found in those plants that can protect those plants from germs, bugs, the sun, and other threats. So again, antioxidants. So each color can indicate an abundance of a specific nutrient. So for example, beta carotene, if you've ever heard of that, which is a form of vitamin A, is found in carrots, right? Carrots, sweet potatoes, and that's what gives it that orange color. So as I mentioned before, nearly all of us are falling short on our fruit and vegetable intake. And so the CDC conducts something called the NHANES survey. So it stands for the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. And it assesses the health and nutritional status of adults and children in the U.S. Based on that information, a phytonutrients report was conducted. So this is information from 2009, so maybe it's a little outdated, but just to give you an idea, it found that 8 out of 10 people in the U.S. are falling short in virtually every color category. So these are subcategories of fruits and vegetables. So you see green, right, red, white, purple, blue, orange, and yellow. We're not quite there. We got a long way to go. So as I mentioned earlier, those different colors can represent the different phytochemicals that we see in those fruits and vegetables. So for example, red, when you think about tomatoes, watermelon, they contain different phytochemicals like lycopene and ellagic acid. So these have been studied for their cancer-fighting effects. Like I said, we see them in watermelon, and watermelon is even higher in lycopene than tomatoes. Watermelon is also rich in something called citrulline. Again, a lot of sort of biochemical terms, but we sort of sum everything up and call them phytochemicals, but we're just going over a few specific examples. So the orange and yellow, I mentioned before, rich in carotenoids and beta-cryptoxanthin. So thinking about squash, carrots, sweet potatoes, and these compounds have been studied for their antioxidant benefits, promoting healthy vision, cell growth, really great for overall circulation. Citrus fruits in particular contain a unique phytonutrient called hesperidin, which helps to increase blood flow. Onto the green, which is probably a category as a kid you never wanted to eat your green leafy vegetables, but they're extremely high in lutein and isoflavones, vitamin K, essential for blood and bone health. Green vegetables are also high in folate. It is a nutrient that's especially important for pregnant women to consume to help prevent congenital disabilities. Blue and purple. So thinking about like purple potatoes, blueberries, they're rich in phytonutrients including anthocyanin and resveratrol. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. So they've been studied extensively for their anti-cancer and anti-aging properties. And I did mention that resveratrol is found in wine, red grapes, but it's also found in cocoa, dark chocolate, even peanuts. And studies do show that these bioactive phytochemicals, phytonutrients in berries help to repair damage from oxidative stress and inflammation. So as I mentioned before, these antioxidant properties, anti-inflammatory properties. Red cabbage, which is purple, right, falls into this category, is one of the best superfood bargains, has the highest level of antioxidants per dollar, right? It's sort of maybe a forgotten vegetable. Cabbage isn't super glamorous, but it can give you a lot of bang for your buck. Now, when we talk about eating a rainbow, sometimes we can forget about those white and brown, right? Garlic, onions, but they're rich in allicin and quercetin. They've been studied for their antiviral and antibacterial properties. So other cruciferous vegetables, cauliflower, also have something called sulforaphane, right? You think about those sulfur-containing vegetables. And we want to make sure that we're getting a little bit of everything. And what's important to remember is, similar to vitamins and minerals, getting these phytonutrients from whole foods is best. So we know that foods interact in different ways, vitamins and minerals interact different ways, and we can absorb and use them best when we are getting them from whole food. So to give you an example, certain things like lycopene or beta-carotene in supplement form can increase the risk for certain conditions, but consuming them in whole food form, like tomato sauce or in a salad, has been found to decrease the risk. So again, things interact in ways that we may not even completely fully understand, and they interact with different medications as well. So anytime you're thinking about taking it in supplement form, you want to make sure you're letting your doctor know so that they can understand what's going on. So we can't really talk about a healthy, flavorful meal without talking about herbs and spices. So they can be a great base or just an ingredient or ingredients in a homemade sauce, a dip, or a dressing. And what's interesting is that we think about herbs and spices, and sometimes they're, we consider them to be the same. But in fact, a culinary herb is technically the leaf. So here comes, right, that horticulture side. And a spice is typically any other part of the plant. So the bud, bark, root, berry, seed. So salt is not a spice or an herb, it's actually a mineral, so we're not really going to touch on that today. But if you look on the slide here, I do have a breakdown of some examples. So cinnamon, right, that's the bark. Ginger or even turmeric can be considered a root. Saffron, it's a stigma of that plant. Nutmeg, considered the seed. Clove is a flower bud. Vanilla is the undeveloped fruit. And if there's any super, horticulture experts out there, if I mixed anything up, you let me know. But for the most part, we get such a wide variety of spices from these different parts of the plant. Some plants can give us both herbs and spices. So thinking about cilantro, right, the leaves, and coriander as the seed, similar to dill. So we get dill seed, and we also have dill weed. And again, if anybody has questions, feel free to put them into the chat. So when we think about herbs and spices, they've been used for centuries in traditional medicine. So there have been benefits of these culinary herbs and spices that have been primarily recognized due to their antioxidant, antimicrobial, and antiviral effects. So they can contain a variety of different nutrients and phytochemicals that I mentioned earlier that can play a role in preventing inflammation and chronic disease. So just to backtrack, just to reiterate, so a phytochemical is a biologically active compound found in plants. So flavonoids might be the best known group, and it's actually the largest and most diverse group of phytochemicals. So this includes isoflavones that's found in soybeans and legumes, anthocyanins, which I mentioned earlier, berries and red wine, and flavanols found in different vegetables, teas, and apples. So in one study, oregano had the highest antioxidant activity among 27 herbs and herbs tested, which is really interesting. I actually have that growing in my yard, and I don't use it as often as I should, except maybe when I'm making some tomato sauce. And there's an assumption that fresh herbs and spices contain higher levels of antioxidants than dried or processed. But UCLA did put out some research in 2011 that showed that demonstrated 9 different herbs: basil, cilantro, dill, garlic, a bunch of different herbs, as well as an herb mixture. And it did show that they retain their antioxidant capacity and that phytonutrient content during the drying process. And oregano in particular displayed the highest antioxidant content of all of the herbs tested in dry and fresh forms. So I thought that was really interesting. Again, only one study, but still really interesting to recognize. So I do have here on the slide the different compounds that are found in some of those herbs and spices. So curcumin, funny enough, curcuminoids. So sometimes they'll name that compound for that product. Cayenne, capsaicin, which a lot of us have heard of. That's what gives it that kick. Garlic, as I mentioned earlier, allicin, allyl sulfides, quercetin. These are just a handful of each for each of these herbs and spices. Ginger, gingerol, beta carotene, which was interesting. Capsaicin. So capsaicin, if we think about making that cayenne, that pepper spicy, if you've ever had fresh ginger, right, it has a kick to it. So part of that reason is that capsaicin compound. Rosemary, rosmarinic acid, flavonoids, oregano, thymol, rosmarinic acid. You will see some overlay in some of those compounds in some of these herbs and spices. So of course there are tons of other herbs and spices that have generous levels of different phytochemicals and antioxidants: cinnamon, rosemary, basil, nutmeg. It's really nice to sort of include a variety in your diet and your meals. Of course, it makes it exciting, but we also want to consume these herbs and spices for their antioxidant content. We don't necessarily want to get too ahead of ourselves and consume these for a specific health benefit. We do need more research before we know specific protective health effects of certain herbs and spices, but we do want to consume them and know that they do have some of that antioxidant in there. So herbs and spices, as I mentioned, can add such deep flavor, excitement, and they can reduce the need for added salt, sugars, fats that are also used for flavor. So they provide depth, brightness, heat, sweetness, right? Think about cinnamon. And experimenting in the kitchen with different cuisines and changing up the spices you use can also keep your palate from getting bored and reaching for salty, fatty, sugary condiments. So this is just sort of a snapshot of different kind of green herb-focused sauces from around the world. So chimichurri, pesto, chermoula from Morocco, green chutney, Thai chili herb sauce from Thailand. So you'll notice that a lot of them have multiple herbs, multiple spices, garlic, some sort of acid, right? So whether that's lime juice or maybe vinegar, you'll see that there's a combination of different flavors that really pack a lot of punch. And let me know if there's any in particular that you like. So we want to talk about seasonality as well. So we are fortunate that we have a year-round supply of fresh produce. We can get anything, anytime, right? And it's been made possible through the intensification of agriculture, using new technologies, extending the natural production and growing seasons of certain products, of most products, right? And increased international trade. So this has given us a more varied diet, right, historically in many countries. But this global demand has also, affected our environment, higher energy usage, more land use change. So we do want to sort of look toward seasonality. And there are different types of seasonality. So a globally seasonal product is produced in the natural production season, but consumed anywhere in the world. So if we think about, a climate where avocados can grow, right? Avocados can't grow in New York. But seasonally, right, in Mexico, they can grow much longer time of the year, but we're able to eat them here. So this does have a benefit, right? It has a nutritional benefit of providing a more varied and consistent supply of fresh produce year-round, but it also increases the demand for foods that can have a high environmental cost, water stress, land use, associated with loss of biodiversity. Again, I'm not an expert in this, but just to give everybody an idea of where our food comes from. Now, a locally seasonal product is produced in the natural production season and consumed within the same climatic zone. So thinking about New York, right? When June comes around, strawberries, right? Of course, I can get strawberries in April. I can get strawberries in January, but they're 99% likely not to be grown in New York. I know that if I wait until June, I can go to the farmer's market and get my local strawberries. So some of the benefits of eating seasonally, we can reconnect with the origins of the food that we eat and better understand the natural growing and production seasons, right? Years and years ago, we had to eat what was available, what was locally available, and then we stored things for the future. We preserved things for colder months when we, could not grow our own. It doesn't require high energy input from artificial heating and lighting needed to produce crops out of that natural growing season. And seasonal produce is typically described as tastier, fresher, better quality than the equivalent that's produced or imported out of season. So some of those benefits of eating locally, very similar, but just to extrapolate a little bit. So again, better taste, better nutritional content. It has a brief storage time, shorter commute. Crops that are picked at their peak of ripeness and sold to us either from our CSA, from the farmer's market, from the grocery store, as opposed to something that's harvested early in order to be shipped and distributed to your store. So a lot of times produce at local markets was picked, local farmers markets or local grocery stores that are obtaining locally grown foods was picked within 24 hours of your purchase, which is amazing. Or if you've ever had the opportunity to grow and eat your own, there's definitely a difference. That shorter time between harvest and your table means that it's less likely that nutrient value has decreased. So food imported from far away, far states, far countries is often a little bit older, right? It's traveled, it sits maybe in a truck in the distribution center before it gets to you. And there are certain nutrients, vitamin C, certain B vitamins that are susceptible to degradation. So they're affected by that time, right? That prolonged time, the exposure to things like heat and light. Again, some environmental benefits, right? Purchasing locally grown food helps to maintain our local farmland, green spaces, right, in our community. Local growers can tell you how things are grown. So if you show up to a farmer's market, if you, call up Sang Lee on the East End, you can ask them what practices they use, how they grow their crops, how they harvest their crops. You'll know exactly where your food comes from and who grew it, and therefore you'll know a lot about the food. So maybe you show up to the farmer's market and you've never had kohlrabi, and you can actually ask the farmer or a representative from that farm, hey, what's the best way to cook this? What's the best way to store it? So maybe you can also reduce your overall food waste if you know how to eat and store your food a little bit better. So local foods also promote a safer food supply, right? The more steps there are between you and your food source, the more chances there are for contamination. This isn't to scare anybody, right? Our food supply is very safe, but food that's grown in distant locations, there's potential for food safety issues, right? Harvesting, washing, shipping, distribution. There are all these points where something, can happen. There's that enhanced level of engagement with the food chain, and you're supporting local farmers, the local economy. Eating locally is eating seasonally, right? So even though I wish I could get strawberries in December, the best time to eat them is when I can purchase them directly from a local grower or even grow my own. So they're full of flavor, they taste better, and they haven't traveled for thousands of miles. They weren't picked, a few days ago, a week ago. And that garlic is from our East Meadow farm. So getting to our super hyper local, right, seasonal produce. So this information comes from the Department of Ag and Markets, and I got this particular group of produce list from grownyc.org. So in New York, right, we're in April, maybe not a ton of locally available products. Shell beans, onions, potatoes, apples. If you'll notice, there's a star next to them. So certain products can be stored well and can last us beyond that growing season, right? So what's currently starting to come into season in New York as far as growing, mesclun greens, parsnips. I'm super excited, though, that we're almost hitting our a peak growing season. So May, June, even July. I don't have July up here. I just kept up some of the spring months. We're going to be seeing asparagus, lettuce, radishes, parsnips, right? Broccoli, cabbage, all these super wonderful locally available products. So, of course, exact availability and harvest times vary region to region, year to year, but this will give you a general summary and idea of what to look for from our New York growers. So, we are looking at this information from the Department of Ag and Markets, which was we were fortunate enough to have to give out this information. But this is not to say that we cannot supplement our diets with produce grown elsewhere. It is wonderful to support our local growers, and I do try as best as I can to eat locally, eat seasonally. But again, I do supplement my diet with some things that are maybe not in season or not grown locally, right? I do love avocados. I do like bananas, right? So how many of us have experimented with gardening? I don't know if we have a group of super experienced gardeners here. I don't know if we have people that are just interested in growing their own. This will be coming up on my third year in my house, and I'm still experimenting a little bit, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. But there are many benefits we see with gardening, and you don't have to be an expert to reap these benefits. And I'm so happy that we've been having this nicer weather. I was able to get out in my garden yesterday a little bit. So what benefits can we see from gardening? So it can help us to support our nutrition goals. So when you grow and cook with your own fresh herbs, it's a great way to add flavor, and it's right outside your door, right? It really is a proud moment for me when I can successfully grow something and feed it to my family. Mood boosting benefits, right? Stress relief, some of that physical activity, maybe. Exposure to vitamin D, which a lot of us are deficient in, especially coming out of the winter season. Enjoying, again, that aerobic exercise. Think about pulling weeds, reaching for tools, twisting, bending, raking. Can help with strength, stamina, flexibility. We can motivate choosy children and also choosy adults to try new foods. So we're seeing a lot of new farm-to-school programs popping up because there's a tremendous benefit to teaching children about nutrition and where our food comes from. Research shows that students who are exposed to any sort of edible education, it increases their fruit and vegetable consumption by up to 30%. And this is something my brother, who is 45, can benefit from. I could tell you right now that he's never seen a bell pepper in real life. So adults also. again, growing your own and eating your own, feeding your family what you've grown, there's a great amount of satisfaction in that. And more respect for farmers, right? When you know how much they go through. I have a teeny tiny garden, and it is a lot of work to maintain. And it shows me how much love and care and effort that goes into our farmers and our farming economics and culture.
Nicole, I just want to interrupt on the chat. One of the patrons, Gloria, said she did have her own garden until something was eating her tomatoes. So I'm sure that's a problem that so many, anyone who farms their own little garden, I'm sure you get, squirrels and rabbits and little local animals, right?
Yes. I planted 3 different types of berries at my mom's house when 10, 15 years ago. And she, to this day, has never been able to eat a blueberry off the bush because a bird, a squirrel, somebody gets it. And she's tried nets, different things. And I'm sure, so this is something that I can kick back to my colleagues at the farm to see if they have any specific ideas. I know that there are certain, as far as pests, like say like insects, or there are certain either flowers or other plants that can deter. But again, we don't want to necessarily be adding pesticides or other, harmful chemicals around something we want to eat. So I can take that back and ask if they have any tips or tricks for a tomato eating squirrel or whoever it is.
Oh, cool. Thank you. And also one other question we had, when should we start planting this year?
I've been keeping an eye on this as well, because usually you hear about Mother's Day. It's probably a little earlier than that. What I've been reading is that historically it could be anywhere from mid-April, early mid-April to mid-May. And I started a few things inside, and I also know that there are cooler weather vegetables that we can start in the early season. So think, greens, lettuce, spinach, even carrots, I think. But again, I can try and get a specific date or a specific time, because I have the same exact question. Because you want to wait until after the danger of frost has passed for a majority of the things that you'd want to plant.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Sorry. Again, I'm not a gardening expert, but I'm trying. I will do my best to get that answer. All right. So you may not be interested, right? You may not have time or the space to garden, and that's completely okay too. We can still support local and seasonal growers. We can still get some of those benefits. So of course, farm stands, farmers markets, community supported agriculture. And if anybody is unfamiliar with this term, what it basically is, you buy into a farm for that season. So for example, my colleague and I were members of a CSA last season. So you pay upfront, or sometimes they have a payment plan, right? And you pretty much get a weekly, a full share, half share, depending on the CSA, from say June to November. Again, the different CSAs will have different seasons, but you are supporting that farm. They know they can count on, your support, and you get a bounty of delicious, fresh produce. So depending on that year, right? So maybe their tomatoes didn't do well because some animal was biting their tomatoes, but you get a ton of radishes and carrots. So every year might be a little bit different because you're experiencing that farmer's season. So if you go to longislandcsa.com, this is the CSA Alliance of Long Island's website, they list, I'm guessing, almost all of our CSAs that are available. And you can find the one that fits with your budget and lifestyle. And again, some of them have the ability to deliver to your home. Others have local drop-off sites where you pick it up at, your local church or community center. And I'm sure you can find one that's good for you. My colleague and I shared a half share last year from Sang Lee. Sang Lee offered, it was an incredible assortment of vegetables, a lot of vegetables I've never even heard of before or had. And they would follow up with an email and tell us how to use it. So something like ong choy. I'd had bok choy, but I've never had ong choy. So they'll send you a summary of what you're getting that week, and also tips and tricks for storage and recipes often. So I really loved being part of that.
Sorry, Nicole, what was the name of the service that you just talked about?
Oh, so I was a member of Sang Lee CSA, but there are CSAs all over the county, all over the island. Golden earthworm, green thumb. So if you go to that longislandcsa.com, it will give you a list of the different CSAs in the area.
Cool.
And then you'll usually link it to their specific website as well. So getting an idea of what their drop-off sites are, how much it costs, and what's available.
Thank you.
Some also have an add-on. So I added a fruit chair on. So I was getting fruit from Briarmere Farms through November, even December, I think. Apples, right? So I was getting peaches, nectarines, apples from Briarmere Farms as well.
That's
okay.
Awesome.
Yeah. So today, again, before I turn my camera back on, I figured I'd talk about this dipping sauce that I already made, and then I'll show it to you when I change the camera around. So the recipe that I'm showing you today is a dipping sauce and a fresh spring roll. So I've also seen it called as a summer roll. Again, I'm not an expert in Asian cuisine, but I will be using a rice paper wrapper that I will show you once I turn that camera on. So in my dipping sauce, if I was doing this at the library, I would probably use sunflower seed butter. And if anyone has been to any of the classes that I've done at the library, I use sunflower seed butter a lot. It's typically safe space for people with allergies. You don't see a sunflower seed allergy as often. But today I actually use peanut butter because that's what I have in my house. And you'll notice different, if you're looking for recipes online, we may have to do some adjustments, right, based off of what we have in our homes, what's available at the grocery store. So this is pretty versatile. You can change, the different seasonings if you'd like. So I have peanut butter. I have some minced garlic. Sometimes I add fresh ginger if I have that as well. Soy sauce, low sodium soy sauce. You can also use coconut aminos. A tablespoon of maple syrup. So I use some New York maple syrup. You can also use honey. Juice of half a lime. Some red pepper flakes, chili powder. I did use ginger powder just because I did have that around. And so I mixed all that together and then I put a little bit of hot water in that to thin that sauce down. And I personally like to put it in the fridge just so it'll set up a little bit. So I made this earlier today. So I am going to put the camera back on. I'm going to adjust everything, and then I'm going to run and wash my hands. So let me and I'm putting my hot water boiler on. Okay. So I'm going to go wash my hands, and then I'll be right back, and I'll set everything up. All right. I wash my hands for 20 seconds. I'm sure everybody's getting sick and tired about hearing about washing hands, but it's super duper important. All right. So I'll show you the sauce first, just since I spoke about that a little bit. All right. So if you could smell it, it smells delicious. It looks better than it smells. I don't know if anybody's offended by the color, but that's from the nut butter, right? So it smells a little peanutty. It has like I said, that garlic and lime juice, and it's really delicious. You could also put it on, if you had stir fry or veggies on the grill, but I like this as my dipping sauce. So I mentioned already, this is the rice paper wrapper I'm using. In non-quarantine times, I would get this from King Cullen, but I got these from Amazon. So I got a 2-pack, I believe it was at $7 or $8, and each pack had 16 wrappers. You can also make this a lettuce wrap very easily. And I'm focusing on veggies today, but if you were to add, say, tofu, cooked chicken, shrimp, you could easily take this sort of fresh spring roll from appetizer or side to a main dish.
Hey, Nicole, sorry,
yes,
I just want to interrupt. If you could stop sharing your screen, I think because the screen is shared, people who are on their phones only see one thing, so they can't see your video. Thank you.
Good point.
I just realized that. I didn't realize that before.
I don't remember how to stop sharing.
If you wait, there should be that bar that you said stopped, was at the top, or it's on the bottom and it says stop sharing. If you like swing your mouse around, or go to that GoToMeeting link on the bottom, the little orange circle, and then some options should come up. Do you see the stop sharing screen option?
I have to get out of my PowerPoint and I have to do that.
Yes, I think that's first, right?
Okay, let's see. All right, everybody.
If you click on the GoToMeeting symbol, does that pop up?
No. It just gives me a pin to taskbar. It brings up GoToMeeting.
I'll just take you off as presenter. I just realized I could do that. Why don't I do that?
Okay, that works. Perfect. I'm sorry, everybody. It's the first time I'm doing one of these.
No, me too.
Okay. And I'll do everything I just did again, just to show everybody.
Okay.
Oh, I got it.
There you go. Perfect.
I found it.
Good.
All right, and I'm going to bring the chat up just so I can see. What should we start planting this year? I checked with CSA. Should we be seeing me? Okay, can everyone see me?
Yes.
Okay.
And that viewpoint that you gave us was perfect as well. When you pointed the camera down and we saw your cutting board, that was great.
I can't see it.
Can't see anything. Is everybody seeing? Are people seeing anything?
Can you see Nicole now?
No, Carrie, I can't.
If you go to your viewing options, Gloria, go to active cameras. You might have clicked hide everyone. So if you click on active cameras, you'll see, oh, you're turning your camera on. Sorry, Gloria. I wish I could tell you where on the screen that was, but every phone is different. Every setting is different. So it's on a different place each time.
I'm actually on my laptop.
Oh. And if you go on the top where it says view, it usually says view active camera or view everyone or hide everyone. Yes, and then if you click on view active camera, Nicole's the only one on, so it should, Nicole should pop up.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Is everybody okay? Can everybody see me?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So again, I washed my hands, and I'll just show everybody again. I think you said it was kind of small before. So again, the color, don't be put off by the color. It's really delicious, dipping sauce. And again, I'll show this. This is what I'm going to be using, these rice papers. You can get them from Amazon if you are in a store and can get your hands on them from King Cullen. You can also make a lettuce wrap. So I mentioned that earlier. Lettuce, collards, right? And especially early in the season, lettuce might be a good option. So before I activate those, I'll show you what I'm using. So I did mention before that although I do like to do in season and local when I can, I do have some bell peppers here. So I did not grow these. So I have some green bell peppers, red bell peppers, hothouse cucumbers. I do have some microgreens. I'm growing some microgreens, so that is from my house. I also have an arrow garden that my husband got me for Christmas. So I have different types of basil. So I have Thai basil and regular Genovese basil. You could also, keep a pot of herbs, different types of herbs, potted plants on your windowsill throughout the year. So herbs are a nice option to grow. And my mint, I don't know about anybody else, but my mint already started growing in my yard. So this was from my yard too. And if I had my choice of herb combinations, I do love mint and cilantro together in these. But again, basil, Thai basil, even parsley, whatever you have around is great. If you want to think about earlier season products, I didn't have, not growing any lettuce yet. I'm not growing any radishes. But there are definitely some things that this time of year we can start growing that would be great in this. But again, you can pretty much put anything in here that you like, that your family likes, or that you have around. So the trick to these wrappers, you need, and it gives you the instructions on the back. So you want to do one at a time. We do have to warm them in some warm water. That's why I had my little tea kettle boiling. So again, this is great if you have people over. It's really impressive. It can be a little tough to work with if you've never tried, but it's a lot of fun to try something new. So again, hot water. I'm gonna get my plate ready so everybody can see. So when you take it out of the package, it's kind of crunchy. It feels kind of plasticky. It's made with tapioca starch, I believe, some water, rice flour, salt. And as you can see, this is not something that I'd want to necessarily crunch and eat the way it is. And what's interesting is that even over the steam, you see it's starting to curl. So what's going to happen, you want to make sure the water's not too hot. You're only going to dip it in for about 5 seconds. If you leave it in the water, it will completely collapse on you and disintegrate and be really tough to work with. So again, we kind of want to, this is kind of a shallow dish. I'm just making sure that the water is touching each part of the rice paper wrapper, and you can see that it's already starting to change texture. So I'm just going to dip one more side. All right. All right. So again, it can be a little funny to work with, and it does have instructions on the side for rolling. So can anybody see? I like to cut my vegetables in different shapes because it makes the end result look pretty. If I had a full cucumber or full radish, I might put that on the bottom, and you'll see why. So I'll put some peppers. Again, carrots are great, radishes, lettuce of any kind, but the herbs really make it. And so the difference between something like this and a spring roll, you'll typically see spring rolls, say, in a restaurant it's a wheat base and it's fried. So these are rice based and not fried at all. So I'm going to start with the bottom part, and then I'm going to fold in the sides, and I'll do this again, don't worry. And then I'm just going to start rolling. So you can see that whatever I put on the bottom looks really pretty. So I would probably, arrange this a certain way. If you had carrots or other things to make it really colorful, I try to include different colors in here. All right, was that a good angle for everybody? Let me say hello. And I will.
Yes,
do
that was
one.
a great angle, and it
Okay.
was beautiful. The presentation was gorgeous. Hold on, we have some
So
comments. Everyone
I'm
said yes, perfect, perfect. It really was. That was really cool, really cool.
So I'm going to do one more, just to show. Oh, I didn't put my microgreens, so I forgot my microgreens. So what's great about this, again, if you had kids, making sure the water's not too hot. Of course, kids can really get, have a lot of fun with this. You might have some casualties, right? Especially in the beginning, that if you leave it in the water too long, or if it kind of folds in on itself, but it's a lot of fun. It really is. So again, I'm sort of soaking it. The edges kind of are still a little hard, so I'm giving it a little extra time. And you'll feel it. I know you can't feel it, but you'll feel the change. It will get less rigid and much more malleable. So again, I'm going to drape it over, start with those cucumbers again on the bottom. And I have had colleagues that have either made it or tasted them when I make them at work, and they've told me that they do keep well. I usually don't make enough to have leftovers, but that they do keep well in the fridge for a day or two. So again, and you can individualize them if somebody likes peppers and maybe they don't like carrots, or maybe they don't like cilantro and they only want basil. You can really create whatever you would like. So again, I'll add my microgreens, my mint. Love the fresh mint, basil, anti-basil, because why not? And again, I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm going to make sure that it's tucked. Everything's tucked in. You don't want anything that's necessarily too sharp. So sometimes if I have a carrot, a shredded carrot that's too sharp, it might poke through the side. And then I'm going to fold in the sides. And then I'm going to roll. Okay. So it looks Again, it looks pretty. My first one was much prettier, so I'll show that one. It's really pretty. It's beautiful. You can do a lot with it. And again, you can either serve the dipping sauce on the side to dip in. You can sort of drizzle some on top. It can be, the sauce can also be as thin or as thick as you like. That's what that hot water does. So if you want it a little thinner, you can add a little more water. And again, you can just like drizzle it on top if you'd like. You can dip it. It really is something delicious, exciting, different than sort of something that's, I love tacos. I love Taco Tuesday, but having something like this is something unique maybe that not everybody has had. And anytime I make it in a class, everyone is really excited about it. Maybe they've never used the rice paper wrappers. Maybe they've had these fresh spring rolls in a Vietnamese restaurant and they never thought to try it themselves. You just got to try it. Some of them might rip, and that's okay, but you'll get the hang of it. All right. So any questions, comments? You want me to do another one? I can do that too.
We got one question. They said, do you know the difference between basil and Thai?
So I know that there are a ton of different types of basil: lemon basil, Thai basil, Genovese basil, and botanically I couldn't tell you the difference. I would say that the Thai basil almost has a little bit of like a lemony scent. If you've ever had, Thai curries or Thai food, you'll definitely notice it's basil. You definitely taste basil, but it's something a little bit different. I want to say it's a little more lemony than a regular basil, less medicinal. I don't know if these are technical terms, but that's my experience with it. Again, there's chocolate basil, mint basil. There's all kinds of crazy herbs out there. Go nuts. What I will say about what you're growing, I try to grow a rainbow, a little bit of everything. My first year in the garden, I went a little nuts and I planted everything that I found. I'm like, I'm going to plant eggplant. I'm going to plant 2 different types of eggplant, all these different things, which is really fun and exciting, but I don't like eggplant personally. So I wound up giving it a lot away, which is perfectly fine and lovely. And my mother-in-law, my neighbors loved it. So I will say, grow what you like and maybe be a little bit adventurous and try to grow something different. It'll motivate you to try something new, but also be mindful and don't waste either. So if you can share with your neighbors and your family, if you can preserve, those summer tomatoes, maybe make a sauce and freeze, great.
Oh, cool. I remember I used to live in an apartment that the landlord was an Italian woman who grew this beautiful vegetable garden, and she used to grow so much zucchini and tomatoes that she would always leave it on our doorstep. So she always shared, which was so great for us. But you do end up growing a lot more sometimes than you can handle. So it benefits others if you share. Someone asked, do you use compost or fertilizer?
If I was a gardening expert, I would probably say that there's a place for both. I am not. I should. It is on my list to do to start a home composting ritual, I suppose.
Me too.
But I can. Yeah, it's on my list. But I can find out. Again, I can find out and see what they recommend.
Oh, wonderful. Andrea shared. Cornell Cooperative Extension of Nassau County has fruits and vegetable fact sheets on our website, as well as other fact sheets. The link to the fruits and vegetables fact sheet is there. So she shared that. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I will say that our farm that's located in East Meadow is an incredible wealth of information. Of course, we're sort of in a tricky time right now where we're not open to the public, but when we're open for the season, we have so many different plants, flowers, herbs, vegetables growing, and it's mainly operated by our 100 Master Gardener volunteers. We do have a few staff members that are fantastic and wonderful and can answer many of these questions better than I can, but our Master Gardeners are an amazing, amazing group, and they can really, if you're interested in walking around the garden, they can teach you a lot more than I can about it. But our website, thank you so much, Andrea, is full of information. Those fact sheets are.
Yeah, and she also wrote that there's the composting fact sheets are there too. So I'm definitely going to check those out. And then another question, or rather comment, someone said that they checked out the CSA's website and it doesn't seem like they have delivery to Oceanside.
So there are a lot of different ones available. So let me see. So not every CSA will deliver to your neighborhood, and not every neighborhood will have a delivery site. So for example, I worked in Jericho. I live in Huntington. My coworker lived in Queens. We picked up in Manhasset, which sounds completely foreign and out of the way, but it was somewhat convenient for both of us. And I will tell you right now that the drop-off site in Huntington was sold out already. So I know that for one particular CSA. So I need to either check out a different CSA if I want to stay within Huntington, or explore a different neighborhood or a different town. So that might be possible. So maybe not Oceanside, but maybe they'll have something in Baldwin or Lynbrook or something over there. I'm not sure, but a lot of them have multiple drop-off sites, if that helps.
Oh, and someone said she knows someone that picks up at a garage in Rockville Center. And Adam said,
awesome.
And that person said, thank you. Thank you for answering that.
Awesome.
Question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Any last questions? We have a few minutes left.
Does anybody have anything that they are starting to grow? Does anybody grow anything inside, like herbs in your kitchen? Maybe starting a little potted, right? If you don't have a ton of space, maybe starting with a few pots. Especially things like mint. My mint started yay big, and now it's kind of taking over, which I kind of like, because every time I open my side door, I just smell mint. Amazing.
Are they perennials? Like, do they come back every year?
So mint comes back every year, and it can be invasive. Cool. But like I mentioned, for me, where it is, where I planted it, I don't mind if it spreads out.
Cool. Someone said I planted Brussels sprouts last summer, and we just picked them. Oh, that's so cool.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Did you make anything good with it yet?
Someone said we're growing romaine from a used head. It's growing rather quickly. Cool.
That's awesome.
Someone said I think mint keeps ants away.
Mint keeps ants away. That's interesting.
Yeah, mint is so good. It has so many benefits. I mean,
absolutely.
So many.
Mojitos. Mojitos.
Yes. All right. Yeah. We don't. Any other last minute questions or comments? Well, Nicole, thank you so much. This was such a great presentation. I learned so much from this, and what I learned from this is that I'm going to work with Cornell Cooperative Extension's gardening section too, because I see that a lot of our patrons have a lot of gardening questions. So, and I definitely want to, when you guys reopen, I want to stop by since I'm out here in Suffolk. I want to check out these locations because you guys have so many amazing resources and it's all educational. One last question. Is there a tip to have herbs grow more flavorful or less sharp? Any soil tip?
Again, I might kick that back to my colleagues, but what I will say is that different varieties have different flavor, even if it's just like a mild flavor difference. And again, I can check with my colleagues over at the farm and see what is recommended. Like if you're looking for a certain variety of basil, if you're looking for a more flavorful lettuce of some kind, there's so many different varieties that you can grow. If you've ever had a seed catalog, the list is endless. Things that you've never even heard of, different types of beets, and some of them are either, have different flavor profiles or maybe a different growing, need or something like that. So again, I might kick this back to my colleagues at the farm and potentially check out those fact sheets that Andrea mentioned on enasa.org that might have a recommended variety to grow.
Right. And Evelyn, I did see your question about companion planting, but I think that's also a gardening question. So again, I heard all of you, and I'm definitely going to book a gardening program, if not online, definitely when we're back in the library, because I think it's a huge need. I like to see that everyone wants to grow their own, which is wonderful.
I mean, right now is the time where sort of a lot of us maybe are stuck at home, I'll put it in quotes. Maybe it's nice to be home and you have time maybe to sort of invest in a garden if you've always thought about it, maybe invest in some more cooking if you're interested in cooking or baking. So maybe we'll come out of this with another skill or not. But I'm definitely motivated and inspired by a lot of my colleagues because, again, interested in gardening. Food, you know, nutrition and food, gardening, we're really connected. So a lot of times when I do this sort of presentation, people have so many gardening questions. I really should have some of these answers, but my colleagues are the experts when it comes to the garden.
Oh, well, thank you, Nicole. But you were a wonderful expert in all of these nutritional facts so I learned so much today, which is wonderful. Oh, someone said the garden club that uses the library for meetings, they might have someone who would do a garden chat. Yes, thank you, Heidi. I do. I know exactly who you're talking about, and I was actually thinking of them. And Evelyn said, thank you very much. I will try the spring rolls. I'll definitely look into the resources you provided and stop by the farm once it's open. Me too. Thanks.
Yes, and I will look to my our IT fantastic IT person to look into posting this recipe. And I also have sort of a plan to your plate guide, so I will ask her to post it to our website. I don't know.
Sorry, I turned my microphone off there.
Oh, that's okay.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, let me just end the recording.
Yes, and